Welcome back to Debated, everyone. In today's video, I will be analyzing the gender wage gap to explain the multiple factors that constitute it. Now, I know the wage gap is a very controversial topic, therefore I will strictly be relying on studies to give a genuine analysis. Also, please do not be one of those people who go and hit the dislike button or leave a mean comment because you simply do not like the results of one of the studies I mentioned. Instead, take a deep breath and just remember to be civil. With that said, let's get into the video. So let's start out with the very base of the gender pay gap argument, the statistic that women in the US only make 81 cents per dollar that a man makes. Now, this statistic would seem to imply that there is discrimination in the workplace against women. However, it is not that simple. The 81 cents figure is calculated by dividing the median wages earned by women by the median wages earned by men. That means the figure is unadjusted and does not account for factors such as working hours, experience, occupation, and education, just to name a few. When these factors are adjusted for, a whole different story is observed. Now, there are multiple studies out there on the adjusted gender wage gap, but a recent one by Dr. Andrew Chamberlain found that when relevant factors are accounted for, the pay gap shrinks down to 94.6 cents per dollar. That extra 5.4 cents remains unexplained. Is it due to blatant discrimination, unintentional bias, personal characteristics, a mix? The main point is that most of the gender pay gap does not exist to outright employer discrimination when determining wages, but due to a variety of other factors. Now, if you were to stop this video right here, you would walk away thinking, well, that's it, that people who continue to fight for equal pay are fighting on no premise. However, the pay gap remains much more complicated than that when we ask one simple question. Why are women making such different choices compared to men? Well, let's look at these choices individually in the categories used by the Chamberlain study, which were experience, industry, education, and occupation. While there were other factors, these were the most statistically significant. So let's start off with the factor of industry. According to the International Labor Organization, men tend to work in higher paying industries such as STEM, while women tend to work in lower paying industries such as humanities and social work. Now, this breakdown raises two questions. Why do men-dominated industries pay more, and why aren't there more women in high-paying men-dominated industries? These questions are important to answer, as about 50% of the pay gap was attributed to industry and occupation in the Chamberlain study. So let's start off with why men-dominated industries pay more. A study by Work, Employment, and Society set out to answer this question back in 2016. They tested out two possible mechanisms: the possible devaluation of traditionally female work and working time arrangements. Their results found that while traditionally female work is not devalued by society, the occupations held by women tend to allow flexible hours, which is why women get paid less in their industries. Namely, while male-dominated industries tend to demand rigid working hours and overtime, women-dominated industries tend to have flexible working times and therefore less pay. These findings are consistent with why men in female-dominated industries earn higher than the women there. They are able to work more hours and therefore make more. That points us to the role that gender norms play in this whole investigation. Women are pressured into taking a leadership role when it comes to raising children and taking a hit on their wages. That can be evidenced by the differing outcomes for women and men upon taking parental leave. A University of Oregon study found that men who took parental leave faced a 15.5% reduction in earnings throughout their career in comparison to 9.8% for women. The gender norms in our society make it so that men are penalized more than women for wanting flexibility because society expects women to make the sacrifices instead. These societal gender roles make it so that women must prioritize family while men must prioritize work, leading to the large differences that we see. Now, let's go back to the second question of why there aren't more women in male-dominated industries. We have already answered a large part of that question in that male-dominated industries prioritize rigid working hours, something that society prohibits women from fulfilling. Really, after that, in terms of the wage gap question, which industries males and females work in becomes irrelevant because the wage gap isn't being seen by a choice of industry, but rather the differences in the need for work-life balance. That same concept can then be applied to the relevant factors of experience and occupation. Women in general have less work experience from working fewer hours and therefore are less likely to advance to higher paying jobs within each industry. The application of work-life balance is consistent with why even in female-dominated industries, men hold higher level positions. Finally, there's the factor of education, which actually verifies the entire argument made throughout this video. Data from the US Census Bureau highlights that more women are going to college than men, and they are actually attaining even higher degrees. That data takes up the chance of women just having less education and skills to thrive in the fields that they want to go into, bringing it down to work-life balance. So, what have we found? The gender wage gap does not exist due to massive wage discrimination, but due to societal norms and expectations. Thinking about it, we are only 3 or 4 generations away from when women even gained the right to vote. That time has not been enough for societal gender norms to die away, and until those gender norms die away, the wage gap will still persist. Therefore, when trying to resolve the wage gap, it's important to implement policies less focused on solving the minor driver that is employer discrimination, and focus on policies to help combat societal norms and expectations. Thanks for watching this debated video. If you enjoyed today's analysis, please give me a like and subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.